So as Graham Ward moves into his next role as casework manager, it seems that he finally does get some people to manage, including, as he details to us, 4 admin staff, one of whom, their entire job appears to be managing stationery manager, putting orders in for things. But anyway, we gloss over that and move on. He then talks about bonuses that are awarded based on losses identified and recoveries made, which seem to offer a perverse incentive to a post office security team, which seemed to get completely out of control. But the most damning admission is, in his role as casework manager, he had to provide performance reports to senior management of the post office to, in his own words, justify their existence. Let's jump straight into the inquiry.
Now, I think you, when you became casework manager, you had line management responsibility for 4 or 5 administrative support staff within casework management. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
And what did they do?
So there were various areas. When I became casework manager, I think it was around 2004.
Yes.
That was when I think there was a Horizon upgrade at that point because the post office card account came in. So we had a banking side to the team as well. So,
as if we could make a situation any worse, let's get an unstable system and introduce banking into it, as well as pensions and as well as running post offices on it. Oh my gosh, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if there's any issues on that side of thing, but at least there seems to be a bit more substance to the role of casework manager. He's now line managing 4 administrators, presumably to help update the 2 spreadsheets that are the responsibility of casework management.
With casework, we had a support staff who covered, we had somebody who dealt with stationery and stores for the whole team. So
this just gets better. Let's just get an overview of this. So casework management, as assistant casework manager, he entered data into 2 spreadsheets. He ran files between one person and another and made documents look pretty. Now as a casework manager, he's line managing somebody. One person is the orderer of stationery. I'm going to let that sink in for a bit.
That was one role. We had a support member of staff who used to monitor losses and issues at cash centres. We had somebody who covered the directly managed branches that they had a responsibility to report all losses to us, just Crown offices. And we had a member of staff dealing with the banking side. I think the system that they had access to, from memory, I think it was called TES, which was Transaction Inquiry Service, which was something that you could access to obtain details of all the banking transactions that had happened. And the team were responsible for DPA requests that would come in from external agencies asking for information. I mean, again, I can't remember the full details, but that was another area. Yeah, I think, and we had a couple of managers come in at the time as well, who were sort of supervising the different sort of the different postal officers or support staff that we had.
And who?
So there's management and oversight of the various parts of the post office here, but we still don't know what that looks like. So if it's anything like the casework management, then it's not actually really management of an awful lot by the seams of things.
Are they?
So Jason Collins. And I think from memory he dealt with the casework side of it as well, and Natasha Bernard, and she dealt with the banking side.
You tell us about this in your witness statement. You say that due to the high volume of work within the casework team, and then following another team restructure, you were promoted to the role of casework and banking fraud team leader, which was essentially a similar role to that of the casework manager, but brought into the team 2 other managers, the 2 people you've just mentioned, and you managed both of them too. So this is still working as casework manager, essentially in Croydon.
Yeah.
You took over 2 other managers, and your job was retitled again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I line managed Jason and Natasha, and they line managed the support staff. So it took away that element from me.
One of the things that you tell us in your witness statement was your responsibility was the provision of performance statistics to senior management.
That's correct, yeah.
What were the statistics that you supplied to senior management?
So it would be the losses, the total value of losses for cases under investigation, the number of PACE interviews, the number of cases where charges have been preferred, summonses issued.
Convictions?
Yeah, convictions, yeah. Can't remember the rest, to be honest, but...
Money recovered?
Yeah, I mean, POCA started around 2003, 4, I think.
The Act was 2002.
Yeah, the Act was
into effect in 3.
Yeah, but we didn't get financial investigators straight away, I don't think. I think they came in around 2004-ish. I'm not 100% clear, but...
Was there no recovery before POCA came into force?
Well...
POCA here, just for anybody who isn't aware, is the Proceeds of Crime Act, which means that you can recover ill-gotten gains from people who've been criminally convicted and order them to pay that as restitution back to victims of crimes, or it can merely be seized and taken off you and retained by the state.
Realistically, no. I mean, in terms of benefit fraud and the pension frauds that I've spoken about, the loss wasn't the post offices. That would be the DWP as it was, or I think it was DWP then, benefit agency. So, that wasn't our losses.
So why weren't they leading these prosecutions or investigations then, if the post office was merely a conduit for this money? Because surely, again, that's a hole in the case. How can you bring a case if you're not the actual organisation that's brought a loss? Surely that is a thing.
I think prior to POCA, compensation civilly would have been pursued, but that wouldn't have been our team dealing with that. That would have been the civil litigation team.
What was the purpose of the provision of these performance statistics to senior management?
I presume to justify our existence, to demonstrate that, the role that we were performing.
Indeed, justifying the existence of an investigation team, one could be forgiven for suggesting that lots more investigations, lots more prosecutions, lots more losses further justifies these seemingly ever-growing expansions of this quasi-police arm of the post office here, justifying your existence through all these crimes that are supposedly taken place that hadn't previously taken place before. It seems like Horizon indirectly was providing an awful lot of job opportunities, work and new roles for ever-growing departments within the post office at this time.
Which senior management were provided with the statistics?
That would have been the head of the security team, whoever that was at the time.
You tell us in your witness statement that your line managers during this period, when you were the casework manager under either of or both of the titles, were Tony Utting and then David Pardo.
That's correct, yeah.
And were they located in the Croydon office?
No, Tony Utting was. Dave Pardo, I'm not sure where he was based. It was somewhere up north. I think it might have been St Helens, but I can't be 100% sure there.
How did they manage you?
So with Tony, he being based in Croydon, he was on hand, and Dave Pardo, he would come down to London quite often to undertake one-to-ones, but they were. I would say I was well supported by both in my role.
Going back to the provision of performance statistics, to your knowledge, were any members of your team or you paid bonuses or performance-related pay in this period?
And this is going back to 2004-07?
Yes. Yeah, so when you were the casework manager and then the same job under the different title until 2007.
think there might have been targets for recovery when proceeds of crime first came in, but I can't remember. It would have been quite a low percentage. I was aware when I was, later on, maybe you'll come on to that, I don't know, but quite getting on for about 2013, 2012, just before I left the team. There was definitely objectives then. Whether they were there in 2004-07, I can't be 100% sure, but they may well have been.
And this has the potential to create an obviously toxic environment with several conflicts of interest, because performance stats are being produced, in his own words, to justify the existence of the investigations department, to pass on to senior management, the head of security, who in turn is, as an organisation, the post office are then rewarding casework managers based on objectives and performance statistics for recoveries. It creates an ulterior motive, or at least the potential for an ulterior motive here, to tend towards concluding that crimes had happened and pursuing vigorously sub-postmasters, many of whom we now know had actually done nothing wrong at all.
And were they for the financial investigators, those targets?
I think they were, no, I think they were...
Or did they trickle through to people on the casework management team?
It would be, no, it was a team objective. So, if there was bonuses, it would have applied to the whole team.
And so, and when you say the whole team, do you mean the security team?
Yeah, exactly. There weren't individual targets or anything like that.
Right.
So as I say, I'm not 100% sure when bonuses came in.
And can you recall what they were tied to, what they were linked to? For the security team as a whole, what was the measure or the metric that meant that a bonus was achieved or not achieved or partially achieved?
Just in terms of loss and recovery?
Yes. Was that the only metric?
There were lots of other metrics in terms of bonus.
But that one is very interesting. Loss and recovery. What, like, if the more losses you identify and the more money you recover from people, the higher pay packet you get? That's exactly what it sounds like. And that is astonishing. I mean, it's fair enough. I'm sure many fraud departments are set targets on the percentage of fraud to be recovered, but almost to be incentivised to find it seems like it could create a lot of malpractice.
That would just be one element. But as I say, I'm very vague on that, got to be honest.
Were any of the metrics, to your knowledge, tied to the number of convictions obtained?
No, they weren't, no.
Was recovering money itself tied to, or was a condition precedent to obtaining recovery, getting a conviction?
Well, POCA and recovery from POCA was obviously post-conviction, but it didn't influence the way we dealt with financial investigations.
Is that a bit of an admission there, though? Because that wasn't directly the question he was asked. However, the point that Jason Beer-Casey is trying to get to here, I think, is okay, so if you weren't targeted based on convictions, but you were targeted based on recoveries, and your main method of recovery was through the Proceeds of Crime Act, which necessitates a conviction to be successfully applied in the first place, then essentially you are being incentivized to launch prosecutions and seek convictions of people so that the losses can be recovered and then a bonus can be paid.
And how do you know that?
Well, I can only speak for myself. If you're conducting a financial investigation, you do the investigation thoroughly, and if there are no assets, there won't be a recovery. So there's nothing you can do to influence that.